I've mentioned before that my background training is in science. And I'm also a big fan of the scientific way of going about things. However, if you identify with the scientific methods, the scientific understanding, it can be a severe impediment to spiritual understanding. And there are two ways in which this impediment appears. Well, there are at least two ways which spring to my mind at this point. And one is the belief in an external world. The whole of science is based on that assumption that there's an external world, external to us who are studying it. Science doesn't even question this, it takes it for granted. It's the prime axiom that there's a world out there which can be studied. Now, this belief in an external world, this notion of an external world, is one which has to be overcome. It needs to be inquired into. This whole notion of an external world has to be inquired into, and I've done plenty of that in previous videos. The assumption is that that external world is material, it's made up of matter, and the scientists who are studying this in the greatest detail are the physicists. But what they come up with is mathematics. They express their understanding in terms of mathematics. And the words internal and external don't really seem to apply to mathematics. In fact, mathematics is independent of sense experience. Its results are applied to the external world which we perceive through our sense experiences. But mathematics itself is totally independent. The procedures of mathematics are independent of sense experiencing. So this external world, made up of matter, which we experience through our senses, is understood in terms of mathematics, which is independent of our senses, independent of matter, and is neither internal nor external, or both, take your pick. And this is because mathematics is like any other notion. Mathematics is an extended notion. And this is what the yoga physicists are saying, our reality is notional. So that's one way around this conviction in an external world. We need to inquire into it. There are other ways around it which I've touched on and explored. The other impediment which I want to look at is, according to science, you can never be in the here and now. According to science, you can never know the world directly, and you can never know it as it is now. You can never know it directly because all our senses are indirect mechanisms. When you look at something, you're experiencing reflected light, not the object itself. Similarly with the other senses, you're only experiencing information given out by that object. You're not experiencing the object itself. So on an existential level, this removes us from our experiencing. It removes us from the universe. And not only that, we're not experiencing the universe as it is now. When we look into the sky at night, into the stars, we're looking back into time. We're seeing the stars as they existed millions of years ago. Because all we're seeing of the stars is their light, which takes that long to travel the vast distances in space. When you look up at the sun, you're seeing it as it was 8 minutes ago, When you look at the moon, it's as it was a few seconds ago. Light, although it travels faster than any other known thing in the universe, it still takes time. Whatever you look at, you're seeing it as it was a few microseconds in the past. So you can never actually see or experience anything as it is right now. Sound takes even longer to travel than light. In a thunderstorm, you see the lightning, and the thunder, the noise of the thunderclap, follows on a short while later. It takes time. You're not experiencing it as it is right now. So again, this distances us. This removes us from the universe. So the whole notion of being in the immediate here and now is undermined by scientific understanding, which actually isn't understanding at all. It's based on notions. It's one particular mode of thinking. So we have to go beyond that mode. And we have to go beyond the idea that what is happening right now is dependent on our senses. What is happening right now is immediate. We have direct knowledge, direct experiencing of what is happening right now. All that other stuff that I've been saying is notional. The notion of the senses. Science is essentially an extension of our own cognitive process, whereby we sort the world out into various notions and examine the relationship between these notions. It's still essentially all notional, no matter what our own particular prejudice. And this is what we have to go beyond. When we go beyond our notions, when we go beyond our cognitive process, when we get in touch again with the pure attention, we're once more back to consciousness. And this is our fundamental reality. And we shouldn't let it be usurped by any notion, no matter how fascinating, no matter how much control it gives us over our physical environment. The fundamental reality is still our essential attention, our essential consciousness, which is infinite in nature, and which is beyond the distinction of internal and external. So if you do have this scientific disposition, then you've got something very clear to work with, something very clear to inquire into, a very definite aspect of spiritual practice to pursue.